This is your daily briefing, and you are most welcome to it. Transfer deadline day, or as I believe it ought to be renamed, the Conman's Convention. I've got a little bit of transfer commentary for you, but before we kick off, I would say come back at 6 o'clock. Not here. I mean, you can come back at 6, but check your usual media outlets at 6 p.m. And I think everything else in between is going to be an extraordinary, painful whole load of hot air. My real concern, and it's been niggling away, we've made some interesting signings, don't get me wrong, but we haven't actually brought anybody in who can make an immediate effect upon the starting 11. And it's very difficult to say, I'm very worried about that, when you've got 3 wins, 3 clean sheets, you're top of the table. It's it's really difficult to sell doom and gloom, and I'm not attempting to sell you doom and gloom, but I'm just talking on a practical note that all the players that we've brought in, like the guy the Papa Sarr, who's coming in next season. I mean, he'll be 19 then. Bryan Gil, 20, and My real, it's the deadwood we didn't get shot of. Now, I fully accept that Eric Dyer and Sanchez have improved enormously, and that's fantastic. Long may it continue. But the midfield, we're really reliant on Skippy and Højbjerg, and if anything were to happen to either of those two, and I'm talking about injury, then we're going to be in an absolute world of pain. The omission of Tanguy Ndombele is just huge, and I put the video up yesterday of his greatest hits, and one cynic, absolutely can't argue. Yeah, there you go, an entire career to date of a 24-year-old, and it musters up 2 minutes and 19 seconds or whatever it was. But a further thing that's kind of overshadowing this is the COVID business with players going on international duty, and I thought to myself, well, this is all right for this one time. But how many more are these coming? Because I don't have any time for the international stuff at all. I really regard it as a drain on resources. I mentioned this on the blog years ago, the African Cup of Nations, and was, you can imagine, accused of all sorts on the strength of that. But it's just this business that we pay vast sums of money for you to do your job. And I'm struggling to see how it isn't a nuisance when you're not there. You're not able to report for duty. But there's actually 3 of these blessed things. So August 30th to September 8th, which is this current one. Then October 4th to October 13th. And November 8th to November 16th. So across August, October, November, there's periods of, say, 8-9 days, something like that. But then you've got to add 10 days onto each trip. And the thing here, which is being, lost in translation, lost in the mix, is that you add those 10 days on, but they can't be done at Hotspur Away as it was done with Harry Kane, because these are red light countries. Now, I know this is a movable feast, and the government has done numerous amendments over time to all this. But in theory, players like Sanchez, Romero and Lo Celso, they could be, for the best part, out till Christmas. And it sounds ridiculous to say this, but they would have to stay in a government guideline hotel, which means they couldn't stay at Hotspur Way, they couldn't train in some sort of splendid isolation bubble. And in theory, this is a total fiasco. Now, I understand the club's position, because FIFA are threatening to take action against clubs that don't release players, and FIFA are all about the money, honey. So they don't have any, business is business. The show must go on. But why on earth aren't PCR tests being required? And then we could do away with all this nonsense. It just doesn't make any sense. So add this to the transfer activity that we've had, and I'm really concerned that, as we saw in the Europa Conference League, that beyond Nuno's starting 11, which has done fabulously well, there isn't anything there that we can truly rely upon. So anyway, let's spin through some of the press that's out there. Matt Law, interesting one here, and I don't know if it's speculative because he does dabble in that, but let's see. Tottenham's priority is currently to find a move for either Serge Aurier or Matt Doherty that would free up the space to proceed with the Emerson Royal bid. I hear that clubs are interested in Aurier, but it will come down to whether he wants to join them. I think Aurier is going to pick and choose, and I think he's entitled to pick and choose because he's actually turned into a pretty reliable footballer. I say again, I mentioned it yesterday after doing the player assessments, this business with Doherty, we have bought another bloody lemon. There's no two ways about it. You can't tell me that we had one of Wolves' best players that we brought in, and then when his old gaffer follows him, there's no spark, there's no reignition of that player. Lyle Thomas, this is straight from the press office, so don't worry about that. Speaking on Twitter, Lyle Thomas, Sky Sports, Spurs have some of the best agents and intermediaries in the country, in the industry even, trying to find a home for Serge Aurier so they can sign Emerson from Barcelona. Plenty of clubs looking at right-back position, but also plenty of right-backs on the market. This is just fudge. I mean, you come out with that on the day or the eve of transfer deadline day, and you can't be telling me you've got the best people on the case. And this goes back to this propagandist nonsense we've had of Paratici on the pitch on his phone, CCC, more pepperoni. What is going on there? The idea that, I mean, is he trying to tell us that the reception is better? This is all smoke and mirrors to give us the impression we're hard at it. The reality is we haven't got the money to spend. I think on Swiss Ramble last time round, Spurs were owed, I can't remember if it was like 40 or 60 million in transfers. So there was a kitty for doing long forecast payments in a plan with somebody, which explains the likes of putting out 30 million for one kid and 30 million for another, because it's only 5 or 6 up front. But we haven't dramatically improved the starting 11, and I'm going to keep saying that because the moment somebody gets a knock or is shacked up in a hotel in Southend or whatever's going to happen to these poor schmucks, you know, it's going to dawn on us. It'll be interesting to see, in fact, how Tottenham, top of the league Tottenham, cope when the domestic tournaments come around. Now, we both know that Daniel Levy isn't interested in those. They don't earn him much money, and he'll plough all of his focus into the Conference League and his and the Premier League position. But if it comes to the cups, I can see it's Tottenham getting spat out early doors, and some might say as usual. Real Betis need a right back badly, according to AS Sport. Tried bringing in Hector Bellerin in, but he would be too expensive. Spurs are desperately trying to move Aurier out again and are willing to do so on the cheap, so Betis are looking at him now, and that's again the eve of the transfer window. Doesn't stink of the best people in the industry. And the Athletic, this is a sad postscript to a transfer window. Tanguy Ndombele wanted to move to Barcelona, Real Madrid or Bayern Munich. I mean, this is a Dear Santa list here. You know, I'd like a chopper bike, I'd like an action man, and I'd like, this is a wish list. I mean, he's not played under any manager consistently, and he just doesn't have the numbers. Everything to do with the guy has now got dust on it. Couldn't find him. Then Spurs tried hard, couldn't find him a loan deal or a swap. Nothing that could be successfully agreed. So unless there's a late change of heart, Spurs to stay at Tottenham for the rest of the season, and that's £200,000 a week. I don't know. This is a curious one, and it flagged up to me because it was on Football Insider, that we know to be notoriously full of cheese. Adama Traore has hired George Mendes, the super agent who also represents Nuno, in order to try and force a deadline day move to North London. And I thought to myself, okay, you know, you're just sitting there looking at the pieces, seeing what you can put together coherently. But in actual fact, I then discovered from Goal.com, or Team Talk, it was Team Talk, that Cadena Ser, which is the sports radio station in Spain, I believe, or Italy, I can't remember, that Traore had signed a mandate with super agent George Mendes in order to get him to Tottenham. I agree with Graham Souness. I just don't think he's got an end product. It's all huff and puff. It just reminds me of like a sort of Aaron Lennon on steroids. You know, it's all great for a couple of seconds, but then, you know, no good. And that's what she said. There's a piece in The Guardian that I'm going to point you towards, because I think this is going to come back and bite football generally in the bottom. Jonathan Liu, The Guardian, very beautifully written, or elegantly written for a football piece. And it's about the Super League, European Super League, and the reaction of the fans. And the reason I highlight this to you, and I'll put the link in the description part of this clip, but I really feel that football generally, I don't know about society, but I think football generally, and the football media and comedy, they've really got this wrong. And I think this gives us an indication that I'm right, to some extent. And what he's saying in this is that where was the insurgency and the mob, the angry mob, once the doors opened, and that we've all been placated by transfer activity. Refers to the toxic fallout after the Super League breakaway attempt, the full-scale insurrection in the stands, riots, pitch invasions and boycotts. And it's just saying that, you know, you bring in Cristiano Ronaldo and everybody's friends again. And I think that I'm not defending the indefensible, because I know the European Super League is going to cut a lot of clubs and really hurt them. I mean, our friends at Leeds, Leicester City could get on the wrong end of this. There's numerous examples, but the reality is that I think most fans, if they manage to get in, most of those fans will be quite pleased not to watch their team play West Brom midweek, and not have to be bothered with these lesser league, less glamorous ties. And I think the idea that you play Atletico Madrid one week, Real Madrid the next, and then Manchester United the following week, I think that's actually a bit of a wet dream for most football fans. And I'm not saying it's right, but I'm just saying that this business that, the fans, and this guy's, he's not kind of turning on the fans, but he's sort of saying that he was expecting a bit more from them. And I think the reason they didn't give a bit more is because they fundamentally don't care. And most people realise that football isn't fair, and football is geared up for the big boys. And if it is pull the ladder up, I'm all right, Jack. But there's a funny line here, and this is the one to finish on. Liverpool fans seem at present most exercised by their owners' lack of proactivity in the transfer market. No surprise there. Meanwhile, Tottenham chairman Daniel Levy is being hailed as some sort of strategic genius for outwitting Charlie Kane, the football agent equivalent of the first question on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I've heard Charlie Kane called worse in the last few weeks. There was a couple of jokes doing the round, one about that he thought Man City was a gay bar, and that he keeps an empty milk bottle in his fridge in case anybody comes by for a black coffee. Right, enjoy your transfer deadline day. I will be covering anything seismic that happens, but if we do get some 18-year-old in, you'll have to forgive me. But, you know, I'm trying to think about what's going to happen in the forthcoming weeks and months, and not what I can pencil in for in 18 months' time. That's your lot. Good luck. Keep it Tottenham.